DJ PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. College football coming up tomorrow morning. PK, you told me early this week you'd already circled Iowa State, Cincinnati, 10 a.m. ESPN2.
Yeah.
Now that you know Iowa State's down two corners, you know Cincinnati's got a quarterback who is turning heads around the country and a guy you've believed in for a while now. You want to pick an upset? Everybody loses, right? We don't pick anybody to go 12-0. Iowa State, where do they lose? They don't play Texas Tech. They don't play Utah. The schedule didn't look that hard. Is this one? The injuries, the quality of the opponent, does it all add up to their first L?
Yeah, I get your point. You know, I'm not as familiar as I am with our locals. You know, we've seen Utah train guys, and so they get a little bit of playing time the year before, and then when their time comes, they can step up and they're ready to go. We've seen it, particularly the defensive backfield. I don't have that knowledge of the depth of Iowa State, but yeah, I thought Cincinnati was capable of beating them at full strength, and we'll have to see how that plays out because, as I say, I don't know what's behind those guys, and for the Iowa State Cyclones, they're going to have to rely on some other guys. It's because that's a significant blow, it looks like, on paper anyway. So we'll see what happens. It just adds to the level of intrigue in the ball game.
When I'm looking for top 25, you know, the week where the top 25 gets scrambled, it's usually because there's a lot of teams on the road. And Iowa State is on the road at Cincinnati. Yep. So we can keep our eye on that one. DJ PK, and we are joined once again by Real Salt Lake head coach Pablo Mastroeni. Pablo, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Pablo, 3 games left in the season. This is the last regular season home game. Now, I know you're about the process. You've gone over that many times. Can't be all that results-oriented. If there's a chance, you know, last home game, will you do a little something to tweak it and fire the guys up, or you're figuring that's all taken care of because they all know the standings and they know the schedule? Or it's the last home game. One great effort for the fans. You try to push a button.
You know, I was actually thinking about getting a hype video together for the guys. So in the pregame tomorrow, just kind of all the great moments of the season to get them pumped up. But I think, you know, they've been talking about the importance of this game and how it's 6 points and how it's a Rocky Mountain Cup title on the line. And so they're well aware. And again, I think for me, the process piece, which is really important, is how they conduct themselves in training and the way they attack training. And it's been really, really sharp, you know, off the heels of a really good performance against Austin. So I think we're ready to go, and now it's about really seizing the moment, you know, and getting prepared to play our best game of the season tomorrow.
These seasons are very long, and there's so many twists and turns, guys coming and going, whether they be through acquisitions or departures, and then you've got guys taking off for other obligations. You got all that stuff going on. Well, now, with the playoff at hand and everybody can understand the goal, I don't want to say that it makes it easier for you, but maybe more fun, because listening to the guys talk, it seems like concentration and with the objective at hand is at a season high.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right, PK. I think it's real clear what we need to do. You know, I think when you're halfway through the season, it's still murky. You don't know exactly where you're at in the table as far as how many points you need. Now it's just really clear. We got to win out, and it starts with tomorrow. And so I think it's a lot easier to prepare when you see the objective right before you. And with 3 games left, it's really clear as to what we have to achieve. And the guys, like I said, have been excellent in the way they've approached the training sessions. You know, we had a team dinner the other night, and it was really great to get everyone in the same building together for a nice dinner in lieu of this game. So I think we're in a good headspace. We're prepared physically, mentally, tactically, and now it's about really enjoying the moment with the fans and making sure we put our best foot forward to get the 3 points.
You have said many times, why do I want to defend 15 yards or even 5 yards in front of my goal and be holding my breath and worried about bad bounces if I could defend 75 or 85 yards from my goal and take a lot of the fluke plays out of it? And I thought for 45 minutes in that Austin game, they were only wearing out the grass at one end of the field. And it didn't seem like when Austin cleared it, they had anybody up in the center circle. They didn't have anybody up high to win the ball. It seemed like basically they were just kicking it to Justin, and he'd just have to run around and collect it, whether it spun away from him or came straight to him. But there was never anybody around him or around Brian Vera. Were you as happy with that about that 45 minutes as you were? I mean, obviously you're happy about the score, but just the fact that the whole first half was played at one end of the field.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we've been aiming to do. And I think against, LAFC in the second half of that game here at home, we did the same thing. And so I think when we're at our best, we're putting a lot of pressure on the defense. And again, the idea is that it's still going to take time. It's not because you do it for 15 minutes or 20 minutes that you're going to score a goal. It took us clear up to whatever it was, the 41st minute, to then break the score sheet. And so I think that's our way of applying pressure on our opponents, in particular at home, where we feel like we have an advantage with the 12th man altitude, and we can really get after these guys. And and then the problem is, like you said, when teams finally do win the ball, if they're not killers up front, they're going to have a really hard time moving their lines, and then it's almost like a power play in hockey where you just keep them under it. So really proud of that, and that performance in particular, and the way we saw it out. And I think it's a great performance to build upon.
That altitude stuff, as far as that goes for you guys, does that sort of flush out in this game?
Yeah, it does actually. I think Colorado might be a little bit higher as far as altitude is concerned, and so that's why I think this game, PK, is more about first you got to compete the right way. I mean, tactics only come through when you win your individual duels, when the 50-50 battles are in your favor, when the air balls are won by first contact, second contact, so all these little competing aspects of the game have to be achieved before the tactics can. And I think these rivalry games definitely bring out the best in both teams, but I think that'll be a big talking point today as we prepare for the game, that we got to win our duels, and then we can now we can start to really exploit them with our tactics.
One way to know if the team is playing well early in the game before anybody scores a goal, and you've preached this over and over, if you lose the ball, if the first step is to retreat and defend down the field, well, you give the other team space to kind of gather themselves, right? As opposed to when the first step is right at them, puts the pressure right back on them. The furthest guy up the field tends to be Victor Olatunji, and I am still amazed by the difference in his demeanor. He is a gentle giant in a post-game interview. The next time that he snaps at a question will be the first. But on the field, I would not want that guy running at me. He is blowing people up on a regular basis. But I'm wondering if he goes when you want to go, and if he goes when the team expects him. Because if you don't all go together, then you're stretched, and they can play through you. And that's, LAFC is obviously fantastic at doing that. And I'm just wondering if the guys are getting used to playing, because it's not as much seeing he's doing it and reacting. It's almost like knowing, I'm sure he's going now and I'm going to go too. And that's when you all start to move as a group and the pressure intensifies.
Yeah, I think that's one area, especially with Victor and Juan Cruz, that we're still fine-tuning. We have a meeting with our forwards here before we train today, and it's really about the timing of our release to go put pressure on the ball in particular. I think it's still, every team around the world has their own schemes, and the mentality in which they defend within those schemes are all different all over the world. And so getting guys that were, because at his old club, Victor was a guy that would just kind of sit in front of the midfield line and just go side to side. He would rarely press out in the way they played in Europe. And so now it's getting him to be thinking front foot. We're waiting for a sideways pass to step forward and put pressure. And then when he goes, we all go. But it's really Victor and Juan that have to work really close together in tandem to then get our midfield connected, to then get our back line connected. So I think it's still a work in progress, but his mentality and his willingness to defend is top. And there's no doubt with a little bit more time that I think he can be one of the, I think he's going to be a top forward in this league. But I think when you bring that defensive element, it makes your team so much better as well defensively, which would be important for us.
Is it easier for you to coach in terms of getting the guys ready psychologically at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Especially, I think the real turning point, PK, for me was, the tough results against LAFC. And then me just kind of just emphasizing to the group of how well we played in those games, and we just got beat in literally 8 moments. And there's a lot of moments in a football game, and so to stay the course and then to come back with a performance, we had against Austin, I think validates the belief in what we're doing. It's not always going to be perfect, but it's the belief. And now with 3 games left and a clear rival in front of us, I think it's a lot easier to motivate the group. And we're at the end now. Sometimes it's a slog, but when you see the end of the season with the playoffs in our sights, it's much easier to keep the group motivated and focused.
Now, we got to dig a little deeper into what you just said, because I'm sure there's people who follow the team just casually who are like, yeah, there were 8 moments. Holy cow, right? But I think if you dig deeper there, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember anybody being as good up top with a pair of strikers. Maybe Atlanta in their heyday, maybe a couple earlier versions of LAFC were really good, but it's really rare what they have up top. And the numbers that have been some of the numbers have been reported on Sun, like $26 million to acquire him, and they're paying him $15 to $20 million, which in another sport wouldn't be a big deal, but in MLS, that's a lot of money. And I got to imagine that that's a little intimidating in front office and ownership suites across the league. And ultimately, to compete with that, if you don't get in that financial realm, I find it a little hard to believe people are going to be building that out of academy. And I know people wonder what this ownership's going to do, and nothing's done until it's done. But knowing Steve Starks, I expect him to be aggressive. I don't know if I expect him to be that aggressive, but all that land they own around the stadium is worth a lot more if people love going to the stadium. And you know why people love going to the stadium, Pablo? Goals and wins. So am I right, first off, about where LAFC sits in the history of the league, and then what that is telling the rest of the league about what they're going to have to do to compete?
No, I think you're right. I think LAFC and what they've been able to do with Belonga and Sun it's changing the way I think opponents look at LAFC and how dynamic they are. I think where they're really good is they can beat you in transition because they're both fast and they're both powerful, but then they're both clinical in front of goal. So, the first two goals we conceded in LAFC, we were in a block defending, right? So we're in a low block. We're not getting beat from a breakaway or because we're high pressing. We're in a low block. And, Son's goal where, he's on his weaker foot and shoots it from 26 yards out on the half turn, and hits the frame. And I think why he's so elite is because he always hits the frame. Like, he is just so dialed in. And so, and I think the advantage goes to, teams that have a lot of firepower in the attack, because most teams spend their money in the attack. In a salary cap league, it's very difficult to get the same type of defenders that you're going to get up front. And so, when you have the difference makers in Belonga and Sun, I think it asks a lot of real questions to, opposing defenses. And then as far as I think every team is built differently, right? I think the LAs, the New Yorks, these teams are, these are big, high profile. Miami, these are high profile teams where, the stars are really important to their culture and what they're trying to build. I think for us, I think we can be, I think we can still get the star power, but I think a star power that fits in the mold of what we're trying to do and bring along some of these younger players where you still need experience and you still need quality without a shadow of a doubt. But as far as the big names, I think we can find then there's plenty of players around the world that can bring the same type of quality that we need specifically for our group that maybe isn't such a star like Sun, but has some of the similar qualities that can make him in our league a player of that caliber. So I'm optimistic that we're going to finish the season strong. We have a good group of guys here, and it's just really adding 2-3 pieces of experienced players, quality players that can continue to bring this group forward, because I think we have a lot of great players and great human beings in the clubhouse.
All right, last thing. If you do indeed win, how long does it take you to check the scores when you get back to the locker room and back to your office? I assume you won't know during the game.
Yeah, I don't really check scores because, again, there's nothing I can control. So it's like wherever, usually it's the next morning. I honestly, DJ, I don't spend any time with that. As a matter of fact, I tell the coaches to turn off the TV because, they're following it. And I'm like, I'm not a fan. You're like, this is my livelihood. So I'm like, I'll wake up tomorrow morning, I'll look at the standings, and we'll see where we're at. Because, again, I think the more you focus on what you can't control, the more you take your hands off the things you can, and that's not my jam. So focus, put our best foot forward, do everything we can to win the game, and then you wake up the next day and you figure it out, make a plan, and then move forward.
Well, let's see how things break. There's a chance you're going to wake up the next morning above the playoff line, controlling everything. We'll see.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
there's a great chance, Pablo. Not just a chance.
San Jose already won in
it.
San Diego. I don't think they're going to win in Vancouver, too. I just can't believe. If they do, then Bruce Arena is a witch. Which, he might be. He might be, given what he's done in his career. If anyone's going to pull it off, it would be him. But
well, playing RSL isn't a witch. It's something else.
Nice. Thank you, PK. On that note, good luck, Pablo. We'll talk to you again next week, hopefully.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
It. Okay.
All right. Got to win. Colorado's 3 points in front of them. A loss would be devastating. A loss, but a win, they could be above the playoff line, and then everything he says is just right in your hands. Just go win and you're in. And no more. They could get all the help they need this weekend, plausibly. We'll see if it plays out that way. Because last weekend there were a couple shockers, and there may be this weekend too. We'll see. All right, DJ and PK. When we come back, everything you missed in this show. A lot of football and a little bit of hoops. It's on the way. Stay with us.